You cannot create culture just like you can't create core values.
In a world of AI and market saturation, we don't get to meet people as another human being as often as 50 years ago.
Figure out what you want your life to be and go and find a company or a job that can help you make that true.
It changes what business is for.
What have you been able to do to protect your culture?
Trust is the foundation of the pyramid of a high-performing team. Just doing what you say will make you an elite company.
That's a mic drop moment right there.
What do you value most about your business, and why do you do it so open and relationally?
One of my greatest joys is being in a group of people that I trust and respect, all going toward the same goal.
Travis, I feel like we could talk for hours.
Figure out what you want, figure out what your customer wants, and then deliver faithfully. That's what makes a value a core value, when you keep it when it's hard.
Welcome back to another episode of Good Business, guys. I am thrilled to have a couple special guests in the studio today here in Dripping Springs, Texas. And first, welcome Travis, native to the Austin area, one of the 9, right?
Yeah, one of the 9.
All right, one of the 9
Faithful
natives. And I've got my dear friend and co-host Luke Frazier back on the show again today. So I'm actually going to let Luke do a quick intro because Travis and I know each other because Luke and Travis know each other. So
yeah, that's right.
As I'm sure you guys can find on LinkedIn and YouTube, I know anybody because Luke knew them first. That's how it goes.
Yeah, it comes down to a couple different things. No,
LinkedIn.
Just kidding.
No, I'm just kidding.
I'm really excited because I do feel like I'm sitting between two just great friends and mentors in my life from faith, from business, marriage, all of the things. And so I selfishly am excited to be a part of this episode. Travis and I met a couple years ago going to the same church, One Chapel, and like Travis. And I remember I was in the early stages of, I'd freelanced in a lot of different places and was trying to figure out business. And I remember walking up to you, someone was like, "Oh, Travis has a business. You got to go talk to him." And I was like, "Oh, yes, we're going to do it." And I remember thinking, this guy's like a really successful multi-million-dollar business. Like, why would he talk to me? And he, like, not only did we start talking business like day one, but you were like, "Oh, bring your wife over. Let's have dinner. We had like multiple dinner dates.
Yes.
We had multiple, right. and it was just this one, it was such an amazing start to like a different side of business for me. I had never been in the for-profit world. It was always nonprofit. And it was a different side of entrance into business with someone that was just like, "I'll share with you whatever you want. There's nothing hidden." And so it was just it was so heartwarming in many ways to me. You're a 20 plus year business veteran entrepreneur and a successful family and loving, and you've done all the things, and there's balance and all of that. But really what I wanted to kick off with, Travis, with you was, what do you value most about your business and the way you do business, and why do you do it so open and relationally in a world that values holding things close to their chest and value propositions, and I got to prove why I'm better than someone? We're marketing agencies, so this is the world where we're in.
Yeah.
But why do you operate like that?
I don't think it was always this way. I think that, like, not to give my entire life story, to answer your question, but, this whole thing existed because I didn't like having a boss. Mm-hmm. I was a graphic designer at an internet startup. I felt like, TPS reports, I just didn't want to do the thing. And so when I started Glide, it was really just autonomy and freedom. It was being able to have the choice of place and time and location. So it was from that was birthed a vision. Originally it was like, hey, like I want to be creative. The web was where I loved. I got my degree in architecture. Mm-hmm. And so it was just translating the use of space from the physical to the digital. And I'd been on a computer since age 7, so I just loved everything, related to the digital space. And this was back in the early 2000s when there was just a digital transformation occurring, for businesses. And there was just this tsunami of available work. Anyway, the short version is I wanted to just make amazing websites. I wanted to create raving fans. I wanted our clients to love us, and I wanted to create bottom line tangible results for our clients. Yeah. And so that was the mission. And I remember I used to always say, like, well, I'll share anything and everything, because I'll share my whole business plan online, because if anyone was ever to copy this, right, they would always be coming from behind, right? They would never be coming from the front. But also it's just the universal law of reciprocity, right? Like the more that you share, the more that you get back. And so, but over time, I think it was about 2015 where I was, about a little bit more than 10 years into my business, and just asking myself the hard question. I saw the TED Talk by Simon Sinek, Start with Why, and he's like, people don't really care what you do. They care why you do it, and people don't buy a product or service. They buy the person and the why behind. And so I started asking myself, like, is my why really to make amazing websites and to deliver bottom line results? Why do I show up to my desk every day and do this? And so for almost 2 years, I asked that question. It's like, why do I show up and do this every day? And I realized it wasn't to make raving fans. It was to work with great people, work for great people, to do meaningful work that makes a difference. And so when you're doing those things, that's what I love most about my business. We were talking about this last night with Cody, who is on one of the other episodes of this podcast. And he said it beautifully. He's like, I was doing something in a previous job, but I realized there was only one part of it that really, truly brought me alive. So I found that and I went and did that as my job.
That's good.
And so it's just that constant course correction of, kind of looking at what do I love most and just constantly course correcting to that. And I think that's a courageous, challenging thing to do, because sometimes it means walking away from opportunity. I don't know, man, that was a meandering answer. I hope that, accomplished what you're looking for.
No, it's so good. We're in this marketing space. And so the general, bent of everyone is to like, let's go make more, produce more, find the next opportunity. And so when you run into other business owners that are like, yeah, that's cool, but like also, what are you doing in your life, and how's your marriage, and how's your family? It changes what business is for and what business is about in a world of AI and market saturation that we all live in and we're trying to grow in and do, evolve in and support our clients in. We don't get to meet people as another human being as often as we may have, 20, 40, 50 years ago.
Absolutely. This is something I think about a lot as a father of four, and a husband of my wife, who I love dearly and want to spend quality time with. It's hard enough to get quality time with my own family sometimes, leading a company and then serving in multiple roles in other nonprofits and in boards and things like that. And sometimes with our client work in sales, it's just enough to get through the week and all the meetings that I have. And I've been thinking about this a lot, when it comes to AI. And I remember having a conversation with AI about how do I, strategically, position glide against AI, and having AI tell me to focus on relationships was a little bit ironic in a way, because it's a natural thing, obviously. But when I look at Good Agency and I see the things that you guys are doing, I know that you're a big proponent of extreme hospitality. Yeah. And this was long before the book came out.
Yeah, unreasonable.
Unreasonable. That's right.
Unreasonable hospitality. Yeah.
And you were exhibiting these things, prior to the concept of the book. And so, just realizing that at our company, this is our job. There's a really great book that came out called The Human Brand, and it talks about this concept of warmth and competence, right? And so warmth is, what are my intentions for you? And are they in your best interest? Ideally, the best intentions are the intentions that are for your interest, even over my own. And then competence is, what is your ability to act on those intentions, right? And so we are constantly, at every given moment, in every single interaction with every person, processing those two questions. What are these person's intentions, and what is their ability to act on these intentions? And the best intentions and the warmth is when I'm trying to help you, right? And so, I think that kind of taking it full story back to that 2-year journey, I just realized that like someday I'm going to breathe my last breath. And the two things that I want to say are that I spent time with people I cared about and that I help people. Yeah. And so I was like, well, if that is my life purpose, then why wouldn't I make my company an extension of that? One of my favorite books of all time, The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And he's like, don't find a company or a job, figure out what you want your life to be, and go and find a company or a job that can help you make that true. And he talks about this concept of primary aim, your primary aim in life. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about what my primary aims in life were. I write them down every day, and I have for like almost a decade. It's crazy. And so, this idea of like, okay, well then I literally want to make the codified purpose of my company be an extension of my life purpose. And so the codified purpose of Glide is to help people who help others. So when we do our work, we are manifesting the purpose of Glide. When we help the Center for Child Protection or National Breast Cancer Foundation or Chimp Haven or any other for-profit that's trying to make the world a better place, that purpose is being manifest. So,
Man, I love it.
So, Travis, obviously, I haven't had a chance to glimpse inside the walls of your organization, which I believe is fully virtual, right? Most of you?
From day one, more than 22 years ago, we've been remote. We were remote when it wasn't cool.
Yeah.
Before you even had Zoom.
And now now you can have a badge for it on your site.
I was actually invited to speak at Running Remote, which is a conference for remote companies, and they call us OGs. People.
We started it.
We were remote back when the dog barked and you're on an important sales call. Like the jig is up. Like I'm working from home. This is not gonna cut it.
That's amazing.
So
and a 4-day work week, right?
Yeah. That was a
Okay.
big journey. I mean, we can talk about a lot of these
wild
choices.
things.
Wow. So with all of that, what would you say your culture looks like right now? Because obviously your mission is very much like to empower your team and your clients, because you're helping others help others. So how do you see that play out on a daily basis within your team?
Yeah. It's funny. I just posted today, just randomly, my hot take is you don't create culture. You cannot create culture, just like you can't create core values, right? Core values exist, you uncover them, right? They exist based on the choices you make, based on the people you hire, how you reward, how you course correct, how you handle difficult situations. And so, when you think about culture, it really is an embodiment, or it's like your reputation. It is an artifact or a byproduct of who you are as a person or who you are as a company, and what you hold important. And so, I think the culture is, it is absolutely directly connected to the purpose and the mission and the vision and the values. And a lot of people kind of interchange these things like purpose, mission, and vision. And these are all very distinct, very clear things. It's almost like a journey you're going on. If you think about, I'm in Austin and I want to go to Dallas, so your purpose is why you exist. It's why you get up. It's why you deserve to exist beyond today and into tomorrow. And then the mission is like the journey, what you're doing every day to get out of that purpose. And then the vision is like, what is the vivid description of the future? And so I think that Brad Montague, I heard him talk recently. He's the creator of Kid President. I don't know if you guys have seen. I just love this stuff back in the day. And he said every leader should be having two conversations always. Is just like, this is who we are and this is where we're going. And I think that when you're having those conversations, this is helping create the culture that you want to embody, and it requires intentionality. I remember back in 2019, I was invited to speak at the Digital Innovation Summit, WP Engine, and I got to share the stage with a bunch of really cool people, including Emmett Smith, which is a personal hero of mine.
Oh, wow.
MVP, everything, record holder of just about every running record there is. But one of the other speakers was John Ekman. It was the CEO at the time of 10up. I think they've been merged into a new company, and he's now the COO. But I just called him, and he was technically a competitor. But I called him and I said, "Hey, John, man, I just want 30 minutes of your time." Because at the time they were about 10 times larger than us, and they still are very successful. And so he graciously gave me his time, But one of the things that stuck with me that he said to this day is, they were remote, and they had originally had an office, but they decided to close the office down, and they went fully remote, and they embraced it, and they were just with gusto, And so I asked him, I was like, well, how do you create a healthy work culture without an office? And he said, Travis, do you think that having an office creates a healthy culture? There's plenty of people that have offices with toxic work cultures.
That's right.
And it was just like this whole door had been opened to me. And basically the conclusion, or the kind of the essence of what he said that I took away was that, culture is something you create through intentionality and through choice. And it was really kind of that was the start of my journey in 2019. Here I've been in business all these years, just existing, and I've always been a values-driven, purpose-driven person, but really embodying the intentionality of how do I create an award-winning culture. And yeah, so we've gone on now, and I'm not supposed to announce this, but in June we've won for the second year Inc. Best Workplaces.
What?
Nice. Congrats.
Which is, for a tiny company of our size,
Yeah.
to compete with all of these other much larger organizations. So we're just really thrilled, and honored to be able to like have that, because like we literally made it a goal, like to be an objectively best place, objectively as in other people outside of us are saying that. We can't just say it about ourselves. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, that's great. That's great. Well, congratulations on the award, by the way.
Thank you, man. It's a super big honor.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what is the trajectory, the velocity been like in your growth over the years? Have you been focused on becoming as big of a agency, a design firm as possible, or have you been kind of niching down and trying to just get like a couple key clients? What's been your approach? It is kind of a leading question. I don't want to be inauthentic in that.
I love it.
So I want to just let you know, kind of the follow-up question that I'll have is how you have been able to protect your culture in the midst of that. Yeah. So,
awesome.
So yeah, just for context, what has that trajectory looked like over the years?
Yeah. So I'm a passionate reader, and you'll probably hear me quote a lot of authors, but unfortunately, I don't have a lot of physical mentors. So most of my mentors have been authors. One of those is Jim Collins. So I love business strategy. Jim Collins, he has this concept called the 20-mile march. Okay. And it's just this idea of, and the story that he gives is, there's these two teams trying to reach the South Pole. And one team, every day they would wake up and they would go 20 miles and then they would stop, whether it was good weather, whether it was bad weather, whether they felt like it, whether they didn't feel like it. The other team, if it was good weather, they'd go 80 miles. If it was bad weather, they'd stay in their tent for, for a week. And, the story is very stark because one team made it to the South Pole, was immortalized as, the people that, and the other team, everyone died. It's like kind of harsh. And so his concept is, in business, it's the same, right? Companies that grow 140% one year, are likely going to see a lot of disruption, an unhealthy workplace, probably retraction, things like that. And so his concept was, instead be like Stryker, the pharmaceutical company who grew 50% or 20% year over year for 50 years straight. Wow. Or Southwest Airlines, who has never furloughed an employee in the history of the company, and always had a profitable year. I don't know. They had some rough times of the last couple years.
Yeah, I don't know if we get pre-2020.
Yeah. But the grand scheme of things, so the answer for Glide is I set a goal of 20%, and over a 10-year run, looking back over 10 years, our goal has been consistent growth about 20%. So that's, 25% is the goal. You always set a goal a little bit higher. Yeah. So that would be doubling in size every 4 years. Now, most tech SaaS companies will look at that as like abysmal.
Oh, yeah.
And, but for me, I want to be a great husband and a great father.
That's really good.
We have, for the history of the company, had full-time at 35 hours. We went to 32 hours full-time in 2022. So it's really hard to grow 100% year over year, when you're trying to also create a very healthy workplace. And so that 20% goal, and then the rule of 40, right? Like 20% profitability, again, that's like, that could be bad for some people. That's fine for me, right? Because also you want to make sure that you're like rewarding your people and sharing the opportunity. And so kind of just aiming for those two numbers as my consistent kind of North Star, so 20% growth, 20% profitability, and just trying to hit those every year in good times or in bad times. And we don't always hit them. Sometimes we go over. Sometimes, like I think it was, during the pandemic, in post-pandemic, right? It's like we're in a once-in-a-lifetime generational transformation with digital. But just always kind of getting back to that mark. So that's the answer to the first question, is just really trying to have that consistent growth. And, but it is a challenge, because I think it was in 2022, we grew maybe like 60% year over year. And that was the first year that we achieved being on the Inc. 5000 and stuff. But we also doubled the size of the company in terms of the number of employees.
Wow.
And that was a huge challenge because, up until that time, a lot of our employees had been what we call crawl, walk, run. So it's like they're a contractor, they're a retained contractor, now they're a full-time employee. This happens over a year or whatever. And so we were hiring people just day one, hire them, bring them in. And we had a lot of challenges. Like it's like when you look around and you say like half the company has been here less than 3 to 6 months.
Wow.
And so the culture becomes diluted.
Yeah.
Because there's just all this knowledge and intrinsic values that are having to become kind of like osmosis, which just happens over time. You can't just like download the core values and purpose of your company in the way that you think and do.
Right.
In a short period of time. And so that was really challenging for us, So I guess that kind of alludes to the second question.
Yeah.
Which,
what have you been able to do to protect your culture over that period of time?
So, I think for us, it's so easy to just like talk about here's what we did, because it's like, it's not right or wrong. It just is, versus here's what I think you should do. But I think that for us, thankfully, because I was so passionate about values, we had those at our core, and we were also using EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, which has a number of constructs in it to kind of protect and support, a healthy organization.
Yeah.
And so, one of my favorite things that we did was we had our VTO, or Vision Traction Organizer, which has like alignment on all these core elements for our leadership team. So when the leadership team is aligned, that you're going to be a lot more successful. One of my favorite quotes by Pat Lencioni is like, look, if you can get everyone on the boat rowing in the same direction, you can win in any market against any competition at any time. And so if you have a leadership team that's on the same page, it makes it a lot easier for the rest of the company and even new employees to kind of be on the same page. And I think one of my life goals, to be honest, is just I want to be going in the same direction, shoulder to shoulder with other people. Yeah. I don't want to be solo. Like one of my greatest joys is being in a group of people that I trust and respect, doing amazing things, all going toward the same goal. And so I think that everywhere I've gone in my life, I've always kind of created community to do that. I had a band out of college called Slap Happy. Oh my God, I can't believe I just told you guys that.
Well, you are originally from
still
Austin,
on YouTube.
so
Please don't look it up.
Was your hair a little bit longer back then?
Yes, it was actually. It was about down to here. We were like Flip Flop Rock, like Jack Johnson,
amazing.
So I was a youth pastor for about 10 years, and just, an absolutely treasured time in the community we created there. And so, I think where I've gone, just having that goal to kind of face in the same direction. So I think that is the goal. And some of the other practices that we did through EOS, the state of the company. So every quarter I call it the Heart of Glide. And so the Heart of Glide is really just, this is our core ideology, which is our purpose and our values. This is our envisioned future, which is our big, hairy, audacious goal and a vivid description of the future. And, and then I would talk through the values, right? Each of the values and what they meant to me. And, we would talk about our big, hairy, audacious goal, which is just the recomposition of our clients to be purpose-led organizations where when we support them, they positively impact the world. And so this just resonated with the team. And so it's just like one of my favorite quotes by Richard Branson. I was watching an interview by him, and what did he say? He said basically they were asking why he's been so successful. And he's like, look, I just find really amazing people, get them to buy into the vision and the mission, and then I leave them the crap alone. And I was like, okay, I just want to do that, you know? And so I think that when you have a compelling vision, and that's our job as leaders, right, is to charismatically evangelize the mission and the vision and the values, that it makes it so much easier for everyone to kind of find alignment, right, and to be pointed in that right direction, to be rowing in the same direction. And so, there are just the basic tactics of those quarterly, and one of my favorite things I introduced, it was about a year into doing our State of the Companies, and just on a whim, I call it our core value awards. And so for the first quarter, I picked each person. So at the time we had 4 values. We uncovered one final 5th value. But I picked a person for each value. And then during our State of the Company, I gave them an award. I gave them a cash prize, and we had a party for the people. But my favorite part that almost brings tears to my eyes is I asked each person, I said, what does this core value mean to you?
Yeah, that's
and so
good.
You hear this person describe what build meaningful relationships, better every day, deliver faithfully, love what you do. And you're hearing it from the lips of someone saying it to the rest of the company. And so we've been doing that every quarter for the last 5 years now. And so, and the most beautiful part of it is after I did it the first time, the people that won the values get to pick the next crop of award winners. So, And so it's just this beautiful thing where they're handing this baton off to the next person that exhibits and champions as an ambassador to our core values. And so just using them in plain language, like almost like throughout our day, right? Deliver faithfully is a core value that's really meaningful to me, who I got from Ken Blanchard, who wrote the book Raving Fans. And he had this whole concept was like, figure out what you want, figure out what your customer wants, and then deliver faithfully.
Yeah.
And so that just always stuck with me. I read that book early in my career. And that became one of our core values, right? It's do what you say. Like just doing what you say.
Oh my gosh.
If you just did that,
we'll make you we'll make you an elite company, right?
Yeah.
And so, so these are the things that I could talk about this all day.
Well, there's a story I remember working with Travis. I was contracting with you guys. There was a client who one of your employees had come to you and just said, "Hey, we've seen a couple of things with this client that like we don't love. The way he's talking to someone, like there were some moments, and I remember talking to you like on the sidelines about this, and you were like, I think we have to fire this client. I think we've got to let him go." And we were talking about it, and it was because of the values.
Yeah.
And it was because of the culture of the team that they were able to share that with you and feel comfortable sharing that with you. And you being like, well, we could make this revenue this quarter, or I could keep my people.
Oh my man.
And I don't know if you, I don't know. Yeah. And I remember it was a wrestle. It was a real wrestle. And actually you've done it too. I've been in both environments where you guys have to do it. And by the way, it is like when growth at all costs is one level, but sometimes when you're trying to hit that 20%, like you still have to close deals.
Well, and on top of this,
you still have to do it.
And we have this crazy radical policy when we do this to give back all the money, no matter how far.
Yeah, that was the wild part.
So not only do you lose, so we gave back, and the client keeps all of the work that we've done, but just to create, there is no possibility for this person to have any grudge.
Yeah.
We're giving back tens of thousands of dollars. I think in that case it was like $30,000 or $40,000.
Right.
We're just like, take all your money, but we cannot continue the relationship. And I remember when that happened, I had I had 3 different people come up to me privately and said, "Thank you so much for doing this." One of the 3 said, "And this is why I'll never leave this company."
And I don't think they have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I completely agree. And that's painful, right? Because you lose not only the money you got from that client, you lose the time that you could have been serving another client that could have been generating revenue. And, it's just this double whammy. And, but it's happened, just a handful of times over the years where we had to make that hard decision. But that's what makes a value a core value, right?
Yes.
When you keep it when it's hard.
Yeah, that's good.
Because if you don't keep it when it's hard, it's not really a core value.
Man, that's tough.
Wow, that's a mic drop moment right there. All right, so I love everything that you've said. I don't know if you know this, but I'm a huge proponent of EOS. Traction all the way, man.
Yeah. Gino Wickman for the win.
Oh yeah. I messaged him on LinkedIn. I was like, "Hey, you want to come on to Good Business?" He was like, "I'm grateful." I got a response. He said, "I don't do that anymore.
I don't need to be.
I sold the company, so I don't do any of those anymore." But that said, I was just like, my idol. He responded to me on LinkedIn.
Maybe we'll have to sweeten the deal somehow. You know, give him some barbecue. And
Absolutely.
This place
Yeah.
All right, this is a shout out to you, Gino. I know you're not watching this, but yeah. Huge fan of EOS. When it comes to maintaining culture, obviously that VTO, the Vision Traction Organizer, so helpful in the core focus and helping identify your purpose, your cause, your passion, your niche, and then of course your values. Has there been any other side effect that you've seen of value that you've been able to generate within the culture as a result of implementing EOS?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Like the process of implementing EOS, we hired an implementer at the start, helped us uncover the core values and the whole process that we used. And one of my favorite exercises and tools in the toolkit of EOS is the bar, right? So you have a bar and you have your core values. And so you evaluate each person based on each core value. And so we have, at the time that we did this, we had 4 core values. Again, we uncovered a 5th but at the time 4, and it's just plus, minus, or minus. This person exhibits this core value most of the time, some of the time, or not most of the time. And, you create the bar. So you say, okay, we have 4 core values. If someone doesn't exhibit most of our core values most of the time, then this is a problem. And so, it's like, before it's like you're sticking your finger in the air.
Yeah.
This person's driving me crazy, but I don't know why.
Yeah.
And then you do this math, and it's just mind altering that you can just see, wow, this person most of the time is not exhibiting one core value, and some of the time is not exhibiting another core value. This is why they're driving us so crazy,
Yeah.
And it was unfortunate. And so the thing is, so you create the bar and you create a 3-strike rule, and you say, okay, look, we're going to go to this person. We're going to create an improvement plan. We're going to say, hey, look, delivering faithfully is one of our core values, right? So trust is the foundation of the pyramid of a high-performing team. And your teammates can't trust you because you need to do what you can do so that they can do what they can do, and they can't do it unless you do your part. And so, having to make those hard choices there, as a young leader, we allowed some of these things to continue before I knew all of this, before I knew better. But what happens is if you don't kind of rectify the situation, whether it's improvement or just realizing this person might not be right for your company, they're great and they might perform great, but not in the circumstances in the place at your company. If you don't adhere to that, then you're basically telling your team this is not a core value. And so that was eye-opening for me. And when you realize it that way, it makes it a lot easier to have hard conversations and to make hard decisions, because we're going to keep this even though it's hard. And so that was one. And then RPRS, right person, right seat. That's another great tool in the EOS kind of toolkit, where right person is the core value match, and then right seat is something they call GWC, or get it, want it, capacity for it. And so you have all of these great kind of like tools that you can pull out and use. I love GWC because it comes down to understanding that you might have the right person in the wrong seat. So the right person is someone who is beloved, who exhibits all of the values of your company, but they're not performing in the role that they're in. And so when you can identify that, GWC is interesting. It's not plus, minus, or minus. It's hell yes or no. And so, when you look at get it, want it, capacity for it, these are all very distinct definitions. But, that's a great exercise too, because I think part of your culture is like, one of the parts of our culture is high performers, and you realize when you have all A players, you really can't allow B players to be with A players, because one of two things will happen. You're basically telling your A players they don't need to work so hard, or the A players will leave. And so, how do you elevate people, to become A players, or they may self-select out, if they're not able to meet the standards. So these are just some of the things that I think has helped us create a high-performing work culture. But there's like a whole other side, which is like, the benefits and the compensation and the 4-day work weeks and, the flexible work hours and all these other things too, that kind of contribute. But I think that that kind of got to the question.
Brilliant. One thing that Dave Ramsey talks about in Entre Leadership is you hire slow and you fire quick. And it's really hard to fire quick if you don't know.
There's no framework.
What the reason for firing is. So the core values, the get it, want it, capacity have been so helpful for me over the years.
And I thought of something I want to add to that.
Go for it.
Because this changed my whole life. So many years, I dealt with challenges with leading, managing and leading other people, and not always having the way to articulate why am I not seeing what I'm hoping to see from this person, and what is missing. And I heard a quote I was reading Scaling Up by Vern Harnish. And there was a statement he had in this book that was like, I watched my whole life flash before my eyes of every person that didn't meet the expectations that I had for the role that they were in, up until that point. So this is now 10 or 15 years into running my company. And it was this: an A player is someone that continually impresses you with their work and that doesn't have to be managed. And I just realized how many times, one of these two things wasn't true with a person that, don't have to be managed. Like in a remote agency that's been remote from day one for 20 years, we cannot be babysitting people to get their work done, right? They have to be self-starters. There's something called personal leadership, which is like, I'm going to do what I said I was going to do, And so I realized that a lot of the employees that we hired over the years that weren't right for a remote culture where you have a lot of autonomy and freedom was because they needed more management, but you don't manage people, you manage processes. People need to manage themselves, and so you lead people. And so I think that quote by Vern Harnish has just always stuck with me. And I can't stand that he only gave 2 things. And so for like almost 10 years, I kept trying to figure out what's the third thing. Like how can I complete this? Things are better in 3s. They don't have to be managed. They impress you with your output. And so I tried on all these different kind of like third things. And finally I came to, they care, because you can have a high performer that impresses you with their output that clearly doesn't have to be managed, but they could be a jerk. Or they could just not care about the client, right? Or they could just be there for a paycheck. And so for me, the third trait was like the aha moment was they care about themselves. They care about their teammates. They care about the client. They care about the company. They care.
Yeah.
And I realized when I look around the company and I looked at Glide, I realized how much, people care. Brooke Michelli's is the VP at Glide. She's been with me for 10 years. She started as a project manager, director of client services, and now is our VP. And there's no one at our company that cares more than she does, like more than me, and she cares about me. She cares about our team. I think that I get lucky to have the people that I have at my company that have made our culture what it is. I cannot take credit for it, like a portion of the credit, because of people like her. So she's absolutely above and beyond an A player.
I love it. I love it.
So good.
Well, I have something I want to double click on, but I don't want to interrupt Luke. Luke, were you about to say something?
You keep going, man.
Okay. 4-day work week. This is the dream of every employee and the nightmare of every business owner. How do you make it work with your clients? How do you make it work in the function of your business? I know it's intentionally throttling your growth, which is that is a sacrifice.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know, like, how did it come about? How did it go at first? What are some kind of warnings of like, don't do it this way, or some successes of like, please do it this way?
Yeah. No, that's
just in your
question.
experience.
So I get a lot of flack from this. I'm in a group in EO, and they're like, Travis, why don't you do a 3-day work week? Why don't you do a 2-day work week? So like, Travis, do you have a fundamental objection to making money? And so it is interesting. I mean, I cast this vision back in 2017 originally, and people thought I was insane. Universally, it's the hustle culture. Yeah. The height of the hustle culture. Especially
in like the digital marketing space. You have to be on it all the time.
And I would tell clients this, like, I have a vision for this. And they're like, that's never going to happen. And even when I brought this to my team through tears almost, like, they're like, there's no way we can do this. Like, normally you would think that it would be the employees that would be coming to the leaders saying, hey, we want to have a 3-day, it's not a 3-day week. And we'll talk about that in a second, but here I am bringing it to the team. And I would say that secretly my selfish goal here was that, I am in some ways a workaholic. I love my wife and I love my children. I try to spend a lot of time with them, but I realize the only way I'm going to work less is if I just literally cut a day off the week. And so from 2019 until 2022, so for 3 years, I poked and prodded at Fridays. And so one quarter I'd be like, all right, guys, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take half days on Fridays, and then the next quarter I'd be like, okay, this summer we're going to take off Fridays for the next 13 weeks, for this quarter. And the further I went, the more stuff I took off of it. So it's like, I think we were closing in on our pilot that we did for like the full meal deal. I said, okay, we're not scheduling there are no client meetings. It's just deep work, and by the time we got to launching the 4-day workweek pilot, which was in April of 2022, we were in a cohort with 40 other organizations. They had like anthropologists studying this thing. It was through the organization, the 4-day workweek. We were with Kickstarter and a number of other larger clients, larger companies. It was a pretty rigorous, pilot. So it was a 6-month pilot. And we had already taken so much away from Friday that it was like just like a very easy transition for us. Now, one caveat to note, I think that, just for people that are listening to this and saying this is impossible, we were full-time 35 hours per week, has been Glide's full-time for the history of the company for 20 plus years. So going from 35 to 32 was a little bit easier for us than a company that maybe is going from 40, because you're talking about 8 total hours. But I think that regardless, we are still paying people full salaries, competitive salaries, and competitive benefits at 32 hours, which is insane. And, I will say that I still, like, my wife's like, show me that you're not going to work on a Friday.
Prove it.
Yeah. She's like, I haven't seen it happen yet. When am I getting the benefit from this?
Oh, man.
But like, it makes me love my job because I get to do what I get to do. I get to choose the work that and occasionally I'll do a sales call on a Friday or something like that. But just to go back to like how other people could do this, because I think that like the most important thing is like, how could someone take value away from our experiences? Like, as a professional services company who lives and dies by billable hours, it's interesting to take an entire day off the week. So one of the things that was the biggest abrupt change for us as we transitioned into this was like, Thursdays kind of suck because you don't have that like slower day of the week. Like Thursdays are very busy for just about everybody. We have client meetings, we have sales meetings, we have team meetings, and then boom, your week's done. And so one of the things that we realized was, when you compress your week, you start to look at things like an hour meeting, like smoking. Like, it's like almost like when I have a client that sends me a meeting invite for an hour, it's like they slap me in the face. I'm like, there is nothing that I need to talk to you about for an hour. Like we'll probably talk about the same thing 3 times in an hour. And so we sat down and we made a Bible of every single meeting that we have at Glide. And we compressed them all. So 30-minute meetings became 15-minute meetings. 15-minute meetings became asynchronous meetings. Hour meetings became 30. And then in addition to that, we got very tight with the agendas. We got very tight with what are we trying to accomplish? What is the meeting intentions? And then the other thing that we did was, where can we go asynchronous? That would actually not take away from the human experience. And you start to realize that there's a lot of meetings where you're just reading stuff. That's an email, that's a document, that you can share. So I would say, like, for people, and we'll share our meeting, like if anyone wants to ask you guys for this, we'll share everything, the whole roadmap, how we tested and prodded at different ways to remove commitments on Fridays, and, just the whole journey. The other thing too, is if you're in a organization that bills by the hour versus, just salaried employees, productivity, utilization rates, being able to look at billable hours. And, I think one of the things that is, I don't know how you would do this without it, is everyone has to be tracking their time, and so most agencies do this. You can still do values-based pricing, things like that with but you have to be tracking your time.
Right.
Because
Big
otherwise,
believer in that.
It just won't work. And so I think there are some prerequisites that, maybe I take for granted because we were just already doing those things. What else? I think that it is absolutely, so we do a survey each year, to kind of understand from our team, what values or what benefits are most important to them. And the 4-day work week is the most beloved. I would say remote work is probably number 1, but the close second outside of flexible work hours is absolutely the 4-day work week. I think it creates a culture where it's like, you will have to kill me. To leave this company. There's no way that I can go back to working 5 days a week. It's just, you become broken. And I think that it's kind of like, I almost look at the 5-day work week almost like smoking, now. It's like, it's just, you see it in its face. You're like, this is unhealthy and we shouldn't be doing it. And now we see as a society that it's also unhealthy. So that's the same with this, is like, I think that there's just I'll maybe end with this and you guys can let me know if you have questions, but the beautiful story that summarizes why this is so valuable to us is we had a project manager at Glide. She was pregnant. She had twins. There were major complications, to the point of like life-threatening complications. She had to go to the doctor every week through her whole pregnancy, because of how critical it was. And the only way she was able to do that during the week, because the hospital wasn't open on the weekends, or this particular, doctor that she was visiting. So she went to the doctor every Friday. Wow. And I remember one time toward the end when everything worked out, the twins were healthy. And through tears, she was, just sharing with me. She's like, I don't know how I would have done this. I don't know any other company that I could have taken off the amount of work that I taken off, and it wouldn't have been an issue for, almost 9 months, every week. And so like the definition of a 4-day work week is not a 3-day weekend. And I think that a lot of people don't understand that it's actually a flexible framework for work-life balance. And so, this flexible framework, needs to adapt. Like, for example, when there's a holiday on a Monday, we don't take off Friday. It's not a 3-day weekend. We work Friday, and so we have to get our work done. And maybe that's the last point, is like going back to our core values. It's like, okay, we have to balance a 4-day work week, giving this great benefit to our employees with delivering faithfully to our clients. So one of the questions you asked was, how do you support clients? What if there's a support issue on a Friday? Well, we have to have team members that are supporting on that day. So we have vendor contractor partners. We have other people that can support during the hours where our team isn't in the office. And I would say another thing too is just like an agency land. I can count on one hand how many emails I've sent after hours in like the last, 5 years. Wow. So I think that one of the other things too is just to realize this isn't just about Friday. It's also about like life in general. Yeah. And it's so powerful. I think it's an embodiment and a commitment to, we work hard when we're here, but when we're not here, we want people to enjoy the journey outside of work. And in fact, that was the final 5th core value that we uncovered, which was we're making all these crazy choices to empower people to live their lives. And we realized that we had a core value that we hadn't put a name to, which was enjoy the journey. And so that was the 5th value. In fact, deliver faithfully can burn you out. Yeah. And we realized that enjoy the journey is almost like the other side of the coin of delivering faithfully. High performance needs to rest. Yeah. All of the structures we've created at Glide are to protect people from getting burned out, not to like make sure they're getting work done. And so that was just kind of like a big insight for us. So
that's really good.
I feel like I'm rambling at this point.
Good. No. You can keep rambling. So I like it. I like it. So you mentioned flexible hours. Can you just elaborate on that? What does that look like for just team synergy and stuff? Yeah.
So this is kind of like outcome based. The goal is people getting their work done. And, again, going back to, look, you're a high performer. We're not going to babysit you. You have things that need to get done. People are trusting you to get it done. So we created, out of the meetings Bible, we also created what we call core hours. So because we have team members all over the world, in multiple time zones, going all the way up to 12 hours, maybe not 12 hours. We have a couple, but most of them are within about 8. We said, hey, look, you need to be available and synchronous during our core hours, which is from 10 to 2. So a 4-hour window. But outside of that, if you have kids in school that you need to pick up and then you need to do your work at 9 o'clock at night, no big deal. Yeah. Now, obviously, different roles require different synchronicity. So like a project manager who is, the glue, between the client and the team, generally is going to have to work more hours that are synchronous during a workday. But, if a designer is working at night or early in the morning or something like that, it's just getting the things done. So flexible work hours are just absolutely stellar. Like, it's funny because we have so many like deliver faithfully high performers that like, it's funny to watch people be like, hey guys, I'm going to the doctor, or hey guys, I'm not feeling well. And it's like, I'm like, I don't care. Yeah. But not that I don't care. I care. What I'm saying is I'm not like worried that you're not working.
Right. Yeah.
But it actually warms my heart to this day, like today even, if someone's kid is sick, they're like, hey guys, I'm going to be spotty coverage today, for the next 2 hours. Just wanted to let y'all know. This is just a high performing team communicating well. Yeah. But it's just like, dude, whatever you got to do. Yeah. And so like being fully remote with flexible work hours, really allows people to show up. I mean, to me, it is the future of work, right? Yeah. Like if people could choose, right? Yeah. And not everyone gets to choose. And I see all of these return to work policies, and, obviously there's lots to talk about there. But I will say it's a challenge, to create culture when you have all of these different constructs to allow people to be free. Yeah. So it requires even more intentionality to find those moments. Yeah, I think you even mentioned this in a LinkedIn post, talking about the weekly stand-up. Yeah. Like that was really critical for me. Like, so to see everyone's faces, and there were a number of times where, people would have their camera off because it's in the morning. Yeah. And I just had to just implore. I'm just like, guys, like,
We need your face.
Yeah, I don't care.
I don't care if you don't have makeup on.
Seriously,
Yeah.
like, and, you know, I was like, I don't care if you brush your hair, you know, but I have to see your face.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this is the one time every week that we are all going to be in the room together virtually, you know, and this is important to me.
Right.
You know, and the conversations should be lively. It's about wins and you know, excitement, and not like TPS reports, right? Just boring stuff. So you know, you just try to find that balance.
So good. Man.
Love it.
I'm really excited because Travis isn't on really any social media, but he's finally stepped up.
Finally,
You've
Finally
joined the
stepped up.
LinkedIn.
And absolutely crushing it and having a lot of fun. And so usually we ask at this point, you know, where can people connect with you? And I'm excited to say for you.
yeah,
You're on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so you know, I was on. I got on a little bit just to like reach out to people, like I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. But yeah, I mean, I don't have any social media, you know, that I do at all, and this is new for me. And so it's been awesome. I mean, the community I mean, with Cody, who I recently ate dinner with, and just getting to meet amazing people.
Yeah.
I had no idea what to expect. I was thinking it's showmanship and just like, you know, here's me and I'm so great. And the humility and the vulnerability and just the learning and all the things that I'm exposed to, it's been phenomenal. And you know, I got a lot to learn about it, but yeah, so that's how I think that would be a great place for people to find me. It's just Travis McAshan. My name is weird. It sounds like it should be MAC, so it's McAshan, like McDonald's, so MCA. But if you look me up or Glide, you know, I think it'd be pretty easy to find you.
Love it.
Grateful for you.
Travis, I feel like we could talk for hours.
I wish.
And I'm so sad that I have to bring us to a close. Steven, our producer, has given me the note several times.
Shutting
He's
us
like,
down.
we're at 50 minutes. Come on, Clay, let's go.
How about this? If you're still watching, right, you know, whoever, you know.
After hours.
Yeah, thank you so much for sticking with us this long.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, y'all, thank you for sticking with us. It's been, I have no doubt, an encouragement for you, because it has been a huge encouragement for me. And I'm sure my team is going to be like, hey, Clay, when are we doing those 4-day work weeks? My wife is too. Emily,
Oh, man.
I know you're watching this. So yeah, y'all, thank you so much. Smash that like button, subscribe if you're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're downloading, digesting, watching this. And if you are on Apple Podcasts, would love a 5-star review. And guys, we'll see y'all next time on Good Business.